It would be too daggone easy to say that I drank for 23 years because I'm an alcoholic. There's a lot more to it, and a lot of you know exactly what I'm talking about. That's what today's video is on. Ready to go? Let's get it. Good morning. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Wayne, founder of One Sober to Another. This channel is in no way self-promotion for myself. I only speak from my experience because I can't tell you what your experience is. I can only hope that whatever I say here might resonate with you a little bit and you can get something from it. Come on. Okay, so 23 years I drank, and it is too daggone easy for me to say it's because I'm an alcoholic. That is true. However, suffering from the disease of alcoholism starts somewhere. And where did mine start? There's a lot of videos on this channel about how my drinking started. But where does it start in my mind? My drinking started because I had a sense of abandonment all the way from when I was a young child through my adulthood. Some would say, how the heck could you feel abandoned in your adulthood? Well, all those ruminations, all those memories of from when I was a kid and my parents leaving or my parents not being there, and on and on and on. I'm not going to go into that because that's something for my therapist. And that's also something to think about. How we are brought up, and you may believe or not believe this, influences how we grow as an adult. And it influences some of the choices we make, if not all of them. And if you know what I'm talking about, do that daggone thing and drop a comment. So how did I even think that drinking was something that I wanted to do? Now, socialism and, hanging out with your friends and everything else, sometimes you go out drinking. Sometimes, you turn one up or you have a night out. And that's not a big deal, but it is a big deal when you don't know how to turn it off. And that's kind of how it went for me. From the earliest times I can remember. And in high school, not only was I drinking, but I was selling alcohol out of my locker to some of the jocks and everything else, and all the athletes and people who just didn't fit in. So that's kind of what I was doing. And I mean, if I didn't know what it tasted like, how the hell could I sell it and convince someone else that it tasted good? So that's what happened for me. And I used to go out with my buddy. His name was Chris. And we, try to meet girls and everything else. That's what you do in your teenage years or whatever it is you're doing. But I knew at that moment, I didn't know how to turn it off. Now, when everybody else stopped drinking, I just kept going. And why did I do that? Because in the beginning of this video, I said it all starts somewhere, and it all is products of how you're brought up and the environment you come from and everything else. Now, you could say to yourself, my parents were never mean, my parents never got divorced, my parents never blah, blah, blah. But there's a whole lot of things within your environment that affect your behavior aside from your family. For me, it was where I was growing up, and it was my parents. But more importantly, it was where I was growing up. Because of my parents, I had to move from place to place, like all the time. We started out very well off in like a middle-class home and everything else, and 5 kids. We had everything that we wanted, and we had, nothing to really ask for, except for maybe a parent that was present, because my mom was always secluded. My mom was always recluse based off of the things my father was doing. And he was an alcoholic, and my grandfather was an alcoholic. So we had to deal with that, and we had to deal with, his behavior and his violence and his verbal abuse and everything else. And it really broke down our family unit. And it didn't give us the chance to experience our dynamics as 5 children, because there's a lot of dynamics that go on. The oldest, the youngest, the middle, all that stuff. So we didn't really get to experience that. Now, am I saying my childhood is my alcoholism and my alcoholism is my childhood's fault? No. But what I am saying is it plays a huge role in why I can't put down a drink and why I drink until it's gone. Is it a cop-out? No, it's not. But think about it, and think about your own drinking, and think about your own using and where it stems from. Because most of us don't decide to do heroin because we think it's a great idea. Now, given you might be doing some other substance and everything else that provokes that idea, how far can I take it? How far can I, how high can I get, or whatever? Or even in alcoholism, how drunk can I get? How many shots can I have before I pass out? What time do I have to be up? Can I drink until this point? Those kinds of thoughts. That's how my alcoholism developed. And I've talked about this many times on this channel, and a lot of people, they want to hear the gruesome twosome of it all. I'm not here to be grotesque. I'm not here to spawn every little detail out, because that's for my therapist. That's not for you, because that would take up 4 hours of your time, if not a full day or more, to tell you exactly the things that went on when I was drinking. Now, I would love to. And you know what? If I did that, that would be gratuitous. Was that the right word? I don't know. But the point is this, folks. Our drinking spawns from somewhere. And I drank for 23 years because I always felt like I was running. And I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And I've said that before. And you can check those videos out if you want to. Just pull the reel back. Pull the reel back in the video content. And you'll see exactly what I'm speaking of. For those of you who want to know the gruesome twosome, it's there. You just got to dig a little deeper and you'll find it. Where was I going? I always get lost in my tangent and I always get lost in my thoughts, but that's okay. I've been living sober for 7 years, folks, and not all that has made it back yet. If you know what I'm talking about, drop that comment. Alcoholism spawns from somewhere, and mine spawned from rejection, and mine spawned from abandonment. I chased that forever, and because I never felt included in things, and that is when I was included in things, and that is when I was surrounded by people, and it's when I was successful that I felt the most lonely. And that sounds entirely bizarre, but if you know what I'm talking about, then there's a good chance that you can relate that to somebody else, and there's a good chance that perhaps you can dig a little bit and find out why it is that you are maybe suffering from alcoholism and addiction and you don't know how to stop. Because once you discover where and why your drinking or using comes from, now that's aside from the simple fact that you're an addict or you're an alcoholic. That's totally aside from that. And that can include gambling and any other addiction. It's aside from that point, folks. Dig deep. And when you discover what you're holding inside that motivates or fuels your alcoholism or your addiction behavior, then you might be able to identify what it is that can turn it off, what it is that can stop those triggers, what it is that can stop you from relapsing. If you don't believe me, take about 2 minutes, do a little digging, and if it feels uncomfortable, chances are you're starting to hit the right points. Now, I don't recommend diving into this and having it as a primary trigger for you to relapse or for you to go get drunk right now. What I recommend is perhaps bounce it off of somebody who's sober that you trust. Bounce it off of maybe a therapist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist, a professional. I am not a professional. I'm not an expert in almost anything as far as addiction and alcoholism is concerned. I can only share my experience, strength, and hope with you. And if you've gotten any kind of small value out of my ramble-amble, consider subscribing, dude, or dudettes. Life is a daggone garden. I promise you, if you get to the root of what is going on in your mind that keeps you motivated to drink or use, you can find what can get you to turn it off. Life is a garden, like I said. I hope you guys have a beautiful day. And to everybody out there struggling, there is hope. And there's some links below that you can use right now. Maybe find a resource that can help you. Have a good day, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.